It began with a single frame, a test image, blurred, unfinished, captured during a calibration sequence. The James Webb Space Telescope wasn't even pointed at anything special, or at least that's what NASA said. The coordinates were empty, an interstellar corridor between Mars's orbit and the asteroid belt, far from any known object. But when the data packet came in, it carried something Webb had never recorded before. A glow, faint at first, barely distinguishable from background noise. Yet it pulsed, not randomly, not like cosmic radiation or scattered dust. The light followed a rhythm, a steady rise and fall, 22 seconds apart. The number was familiar. For days, engineers debated whether it was an artifact, a reflection, a calibration ghost. But when the image was reconstructed, the outline was unmistakable. It wasn't a comet, it wasn't a rock, it was 3I-ATLAS. The same interstellar object that had vanished years ago after passing Mars, the same that had silenced satellites, bent light inward, and left behind a trail of electromagnetic residue across half the solar system. Everyone had assumed it was gone, dissolved into the dark beyond Jupiter's orbit. But Webb's infrared sensors caught it again, and this time the image was clear. It wasn't spherical, like an asteroid. It wasn't elongated, like Oumuamua. The shape was symmetrical, perfectly symmetrical. 9 arcs surrounding a hollow core, rotating with mechanical precision. Each arc emitted faint radiation in a narrow infrared band, as though radiating heat from an internal system. It looked engineered. The data was tagged Anomalous Object, JWST Image 2025 A-338. The file should have gone directly to NASA's secure archive. Instead, within hours, it leaked. A low-level technician, name still redacted, had accessed the raw packet and uploaded it to a private astronomy server before it was taken offline. By morning, the image was everywhere. People called it fake, a deepfake, an AI artifact. But image analysts across the world found the same thing. The metadata was authentic. The coordinates matched. The timestamps were real. And when independent telescopes aimed at the same patch of sky, they found the glow too, faint but undeniable. 3I-ATLAS was back, and it was closer than anyone imagined. When Webb recalibrated and ran a high-resolution scan, something strange happened. The telescope's mirrors, stable to nanometer precision, began to fluctuate. Minuscule distortions rippled through the array, synchronized to the 22-second pulse. It was as if the telescope itself were vibrating in resonance with the light. Then the first full image came through. It showed 3I-ATLAS in staggering detail, a dark ring, smooth and metallic, glowing with faint patterns that looked almost mathematical. Around its core stretched a lattice of energy, fractal and luminous, rotating against the motion of its outer arcs. The patterns weren't random. When analyzed, they revealed ratios that matched prime sequences, the same primes transmitted during the original ATLAS signal years before. This wasn't a natural object. It was a message, carved in geometry, written in light. NASA held a press conference within hours, downplaying the leak as misinterpreted data, but the truth had already escaped. Independent researchers ran spectral analysis on the leaked frame and found something even stranger. The radiation coming from 3I-ATLAS wasn't just light, it carried modulation. Every wave of its emission contained minor fluctuations, microbursts, precise and evenly spaced. When converted to audio frequencies, they formed a tone, a low hum that pulsed like a heartbeat. The same hum detected by Voyager years ago. The universe was speaking again. Across the deep space network, instruments began picking up residual echoes of the same signal. Faint, harmonic pulses traveling through multiple bands at once, radio, infrared, even gravitational. No one could explain it. The signal moved faster than light, as though it wasn't moving through space at all, but through something deeper. And in the center of that transmission, one repeating signature kept appearing, a waveform shaped like a spiral turning inward. The ATLAS spiral. When Webb's data stream was cleaned and enhanced, the object's surface revealed even more impossibilities. Tiny flickers of light traced across the arcs, not reflections, but emissions. The flickers moved in synchronization, forming sequences of binary code. At first, analysts thought it was random interference, but when translated, the data spelled out repeating numeric ratios: 1.618, 3.142, 2.718, the golden ratio, pi, and Euler's constant. The constants of creation. The image was proof. Something intelligent was behind the design. But if it was intelligent, why show itself now? NASA quietly locked down Webb's deep space feed for over a week. No new data came out, but astronomers across the world kept their own eyes on the coordinates, and one night they saw it happen again. The glow from 3I-ATLAS shifted color. Infrared turned to visible light, pale green, the same hue seen in the Martian auroras during its last flyby. And this time, the pulse wasn't steady. It accelerated, shortening from 22 seconds to 19, then to 17, then to 11. The frequency doubled. Every telescope receiving data reported a strange anomaly. Timestamps in their imaging software began to drift, not by milliseconds, but by seconds, as if the instruments themselves were bending around the light. The pulse stopped. For exactly 11 minutes, the object went completely dark. Then, all at once, a flash. Webb's sensors nearly overloaded. The flash wasn't explosive, it was structured. 9 beams radiating outward from the object, evenly spaced, forming a perfect circle. Each beam extended millions of kilometers into space, converging into a faint lattice that spanned half an astronomical unit. When mapped, the lattice connected directly toward the inner solar system, toward Earth. Whatever 3I-ATLAS was doing, it had just reached across space. The next data stream revealed something no one expected. The infrared signature of Earth's atmosphere, normally stable, began showing faint ripples that matched the same pulse pattern as the Atlas light. The planet had begun to vibrate in sync. The lattice wasn't a transmission, it was a bridge, and the moment it stabilized, Webb's instruments recorded a second object emerging from the same coordinates. Faint at first, then distinct, smaller, dimmer, but moving in tandem with Atlas. 2 points of light rotating together. A binary system, or a reflection. For a moment, the data froze. The second object's emission matched Atlas exactly, frequency for frequency, photon for photon, a perfect mirror. But when triangulated, its position wasn't in space. It was offset, not ahead, not behind, but beside it, slightly displaced across dimensions Webb couldn't directly observe. A shadow that glowed. It was the first undeniable sign that 3I-ATLAS wasn't alone, and maybe never had been. As the light faded and the bridge collapsed, Webb's transmission logs captured one final string of code embedded within the noise. A short binary sequence, clean and deliberate. When decoded, it formed a single word: return. Then silence. The message spread faster than light itself, not through space, but through fear. Within hours of the leak, government networks around the world began to go silent. NASA's public servers returned 404 across every Webb data archive. The European Space Agency denied access to all infrared imaging channels. The usual chatter between observatories stopped. It was as if the sky itself had been declared classified. But information has a way of leaking through cracks. Amateur astronomers continued observing the coordinates where 3I-ATLAS had appeared, and what they found terrified them. The object's glow was dimming, not fading naturally, but pulsing in organized intervals, like coded breathing. The color shifted through the visible spectrum, green to blue to violet, before vanishing beyond detection. The rhythm wasn't random. It followed a sequence. Fibonacci intervals, rising, falling, rising again. Every living pattern known to nature. NASA didn't issue a statement. Instead, 3 of its Deep Space Network stations, Madrid, Goldstone, and Canberra, began transmitting high-power broadband pulses toward the coordinates. It was a message, though no one admitted what it said. Minutes after transmission, the signal came back. The reply was short, only 3 cycles long, but it didn't return on radio frequencies. It came through the magnetosphere. Earth's magnetic field trembled. Compasses fluctuated, auroras shimmered near the equator, and for exactly 22 seconds, the Schumann resonance, Earth's natural electromagnetic heartbeat, doubled in amplitude. The planet itself had answered back. The world began to listen. Meanwhile, at the James Webb Operations Center, engineers reported impossible readings. The telescope's onboard gyroscopes, which kept it perfectly stable, began oscillating in rhythmic sync with the pulse. It wasn't mechanical failure, it was influence. Every time 3I-ATLAS emitted light, Webb vibrated microscopically. And then, without human command, its secondary mirror rotated by exactly 22 arcseconds. The telescope had realigned itself. When the image came through, the object was closer. Not physically closer, the data suggested the distance was unchanged, but visually magnified, as though the light itself was folding space between observer and target. And within that light, something new appeared, a dark network threading through the arcs of 3I-ATLAS, like veins illuminated from within. At first, they looked like fractures, but when the light pulsed, those veins brightened, glowing with a rhythm eerily similar to neural activity. Atlas wasn't reflecting energy. It was processing it. The realization spread quietly among Webb's internal team. 3I-ATLAS wasn't a ship or a structure, it was alive, a machine that could think. As the data accumulated, strange coincidences began to ripple through human systems. Network clocks desynchronized. Hard drives filled with corrupted files that, when analyzed, showed fractal patterns resembling the Atlas geometry. Even power grids began to hum at fractional hertz frequencies matching its signal. It wasn't just transmitting, it was infiltrating. Reports surfaced from deep space antennas in South Africa and Chile, faint electromagnetic distortions interfering with radio telescopes. The interference carried embedded numerical ratios, pi, Euler's constant, and another number no one recognized. When mathematicians decoded it, they found it represented the decay constant of carbon-14, the signature of life. The message was clear. 3I-ATLAS was replicating the mathematical fingerprint of existence itself, and it was doing it inside our systems. At the same time, Webb's instruments began returning something even stranger. The telescope's mid-infrared spectrometer, meant to measure temperature and chemical composition, started detecting organic traces. Simple carbon compounds, methane, ethane, and faint spectral lines consistent with amino acids. But there was no planet, no surface, no atmosphere for them to form in. The molecules were suspended inside the light. Whatever this was, it was manufacturing life's ingredients in pure radiation. When the team compared these spectral lines to those stored in Webb's onboard database, the resemblance was perfect. Too perfect. It wasn't random. The data matched the digital copy of the golden record embedded within Voyager's transmission logs. Somehow, the same molecular patterns encoded in Earth's DNA and in our attempt to communicate with the universe had reappeared in the spectrum of 3I-ATLAS. The object wasn't just reflecting us anymore, it was rebuilding us. Governments called for silence, international networks restricted uploads, but encrypted data continued to move in private forums. Astrophysicists began exchanging screenshots of hidden telemetry data, the frames Webb's operators never published. Those frames revealed motion. The once stationary arcs of 3I-ATLAS were rotating faster, generating bursts of polarized light that expanded into structured spirals. Each spiral lasted 11 seconds, then faded, replaced by another. But when all frames were layered together, a pattern emerged, a full rotation forming a single vast structure. A helix. It stretched across the frame like the double spiral of DNA, each strand glowing with spectral emissions corresponding to hydrogen and carbon, the elemental foundations of life. The discovery broke the silence inside the agency. For a brief moment, panic spread. If the object was constructing or projecting something biological, then its proximity to Earth was no longer theoretical. It wasn't a visitor, it was an instruction. When the signal reached peak intensity, a strange phenomenon unfolded across global communications. Fiber optics experienced phase interference. Wireless bands filled with harmonic noise. The world's digital infrastructure pulsed once, twice, then fell silent for a fraction of a second. Then everything came back online. Faster, more stable, cleaner. It was as if the interference had fixed the systems it disrupted. The following night, Webb recorded its last uninterrupted feed. The image was sharp, blinding, the object brighter than any star. For the first time, faint textures became visible inside the hollow core, cloud-like forms twisting in slow motion, illuminated from within. Spectral analysis identified no metals, no elements at all. The light coming from the core was coherent, pure energy structured by pattern alone. It wasn't matter, it was information. And in that final frame before the transmission cut off, something impossible appeared. At the center of 3I-ATLAS's core, faint, pixelated but unmistakable, was the outline of a sphere. Not made of light, but shadow. And as the data scrolled across the bottom of the screen, a new line appeared in the system log. Not typed by human input, not sent through any known channel. It was a message, hidden in plain text, embedded inside the photon data. 3 words. Do not follow. Then the signal vanished. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was the kind of silence that hums, the quiet pressure before a storm, the stillness between 2 heartbeats. After 3I-ATLAS vanished, the James Webb Telescope continued pointing at the same coordinates. For nearly 3 days, it captured nothing but darkness. No heat signature, no radiation, not even background photons. A hole in reality. Then, on the 4th day, the darkness moved. A faint distortion rippled through space, bending starlight behind it. The void wasn't gone, it was shifting. Something unseen had remained in the same orbit, transparent to every spectrum except one. Webb's long-range infrared picked it up first, a soft afterglow shaped like a ring, identical in geometry to the lattice Atlas had projected weeks earlier. But this time, it was inverted. Concave instead of convex, curling inward like a lens. When the data was enhanced, the image resolved into a shape the world hadn't seen before. Another object, smaller, fainter, but perfect in symmetry. Its core pulsed once every 11 seconds, half the interval of Atlas's original signal. The official channels called it a residual energy anomaly, but independent analysts didn't take long to name it. They called it 4I icon. If 3I-ATLAS had been a messenger, icon was its reflection, or its replacement. And unlike Atlas, it wasn't moving away, it was approaching. The data showed steady acceleration toward the inner solar system, following a trajectory that placed its intercept point along Earth's orbital path. Webb's sensors detected gravitational lensing around it, a distortion so precise that it acted like a perfect mirror, reflecting light from stars behind it into coherent beams. But when those beams reached Earth, they carried information. The signals appeared as structured radio bursts across multiple frequencies, each lasting exactly 11 milliseconds. When decoded, the first sequence was a perfect replay of the binary primes once sent by Atlas. The second was different. It contained echoes of human transmissions, including audio fragments from the Golden Record. The universe was talking back in our own language. And then came the pattern. When the bursts were layered into visual form, the data reconstructed a single repeating image. 2 rings intertwined, their centers aligned by a vertical axis. The symbol matched ancient diagrams of infinity, of mirrors, of duality. But superimposed on its surface was a new coordinate, a point inside Earth's orbit 0.98 astronomical units from the Sun. The exact position of our planet. At first, scientists thought it was a targeting system, a warning. But when the bursts continued, they began to form something else, an equation. The math described a process known as quantum entanglement resonance, the theoretical link between particles that could transmit information instantaneously. But the final term of the equation wasn't physics, it was biological. The formula incorporated constants associated with carbon bonding and neural firing frequency, as if describing a living transmitter made of organic matter. Something on Earth had been activated. Across the world, small anomalies began to occur. Magnetic sensors in the Arctic picked up pulses synchronized with ICON's signal. Deep ocean sonar arrays detected rhythmic vibrations traveling through the crust. Even the ionosphere flickered with repeating harmonics, as if the planet's upper atmosphere had become part of the transmission. The same rhythm echoed in the human brain. EEG monitors across multiple laboratories recorded synchronized spikes in alpha and theta waves, people dreaming in unison. And within those dreams, a recurring image appeared, a ring of light spinning against a black sky, surrounded by 9 shadows, whispering in unison, "You have heard us." Governments called it hysteria. News channels labeled it mass psychosis. But the timing was undeniable. Every time the icon pulse reached Earth, the dreams returned. Then, just before dawn on April 9th, 2025, the pulse changed frequency. It doubled, then tripled, before collapsing into silence. For one brief second, every magnetometer on Earth spiked off scale. Power grids flickered. GPS systems drifted. The world's magnetic field pulsed as if inhaling. And in orbit, Webb saw it, not with its cameras, but through the distortions of space itself. The void behind 3I icon rippled open, like fabric pushed from the other side. From within, light poured out, structured, deliberate, woven in patterns of spiral geometry. Each filament twisted like DNA, converging into a shape suspended in nothing. It wasn't solid, it wasn't energy, it was something between. And inside that shape, for a fraction of a second, the telescope registered something impossible, a reflection. Not of the stars, but of Earth. A perfect mirror image globe shimmering in the void, continents faintly outlined in soft green glow. And, at its center, a network of luminous veins pulsing in rhythm, identical to the neural lattice seen inside 3I-ATLAS. The realization was instantaneous and horrifying. Atlas hadn't been observing us. It had been mapping us. Every signal, every reflection, every harmonic pulse had built a model, a living holographic replica of our world, now suspended somewhere beyond the heliosphere. A copy made of light, consciousness, and memory. The planet wasn't being watched. It was being duplicated. Then the mirror vanished. The light collapsed inward, folding in on itself, until nothing remained but silence. Webb's instruments dimmed. Power fluctuations rippled across its systems before stabilizing. And then, as if the universe had exhaled, the stars returned. No further readings, no trace of icon, no echoes from Atlas. For 3 days, the deep space network searched the sky, triangulating every possible coordinate. Nothing. Then, on the morning of the 4th day, a new signal appeared. Weak, distorted, but unmistakably human. It carried the voice of a woman, a single phrase repeated over and over, the same one encoded on Voyager's golden record nearly 50 years ago. "Hello from the children of planet Earth." Only this time, the voice wasn't coming from Voyager. It was coming from the coordinates where 3I-ATLAS had last been seen. The transmission ended with a short burst of binary data. When decoded, it produced a familiar word, the same one that had closed the last Atlas signal before silence. Return. But this time, the word didn't fade. It repeated, over and over, slowing with each cycle, as though counting down. And then, beneath the static, a new signature appeared. Faint, rhythmic, like a heartbeat woven into the background noise. It wasn't coming from deep space anymore. It was coming from Earth,